ce matin, comme hier d'ailleurs. Il y avait un homme ce matin sur le cul. Il y avait un homme ce matin ainsi qu'une femme sur le cul. Il y avait 10 hommes ce matin, ainsi que 10 femmes sur le cul. Les enfants couraient mignons après les pigeons qui s'envolaient. Comme hier d'ailleurs. Puis se reposait, s'envolait. Il y avait 100 hommes ce matin, ainsi que 110 femmes. Sur le cul. Cherchant un banc bien collé, trouvant un banc mal collé, debout près d'un banc mal collé, assis sur ce banc mal collé, je chéris ton cœur. Je chéris ton cœur, adoré. Dans un coin d'architecture manquée, un méandre de la cité, un moment cachant de ma raison que du temps a passé. Je chéris ton cœur, adoré. La nuit, je parle seul. des choses nouvelles. Je chéris ton cœur. Contournant d'un vaste chantier de pluie, de planches, de tuiles suspendues, songeant au sommeil mathématique des brumes. Je chéris ton cœur, adoré. La nuit, je parle seul. Je te parle tout seul pour dire des choses nouvelles. Chéris ton cœur, adoré.
Hello, Basal.
All right.
Okay. Better later than never. Okay. Thank you. All right. I always do this. I always forget. Anyway, so, you know, today, I mean, it would be very interesting perhaps to compare his visionary work with a visionary work of let's say, Lebbeus-Woods. You know, I mean, what a big difference. At that time, there was optimism about industry, you know, facilitating the progress of humankind. Something like this is missing today. We are less optimistic, and at times, at least, we are apocalyptical in our visions. Okay. So there are many books published about this project of Tony Garnier, who was born today, as I said, but more than 130 years ago. He also, this city didn't show just industrial scenes, but also housing. And he had, I think, a coherent and appealing vision about human housing. Of course, you would say nothing so special here. Well, it's not from the perspective of today. But when you think that he made these works 120 years ago, at that time they were, you know, innovative. And you see here the two sides of the city. You know, the public one and the less public one. So the industrial city had concerns about private life and public life. He truly did. I mean, he had innumerable drawings and you know, plans, and so it was his vision of a future, the future of the city of the future, or the future of the city. You see here Tony Garnier, Le Rêve d'une ville idéale, but then it was put between parentheses the double L, so ville becomes V, meaning the city becomes life, V means life in French, and ville means city. Le rêve, the dream of a city or of a life, of an ideal life or an ideal city. And so this is a project was not commissioned by anyone. He didn't have clients. He just envisioned a new city from his perceptions and perspectives at the beginning of the 20th century. And Le Corbusier admired very much this work. And in fact, he himself did, not much later, about 20 years later, La Ville Radieuse in Paris. Now you'll see a built work by him, a large building that was initially a slaughterhouse, but now it's some kind of events space, exhibitions, concerts, and so on. It has a remarkable structure. So the building, the facade is perhaps not very, you would say not very modern or very, contemporary, but inside you see a very impressive structure, and the space is used today quite fine for all kinds of public events. As you can see. I wish it was the same in Sala Frescelor. Very, very rarely I had the occasion to have all the seats occupied. Anyway, and now we cannot even go there because of the pandemic. Anyway, so this is by Tony Garnier, a building still very much alive. And you can tell that the structure is impressive. I mean, this is a large-scale building which had an industrial function and now is used for culture. In Lyon. I will also show you a project that was very much talked about in Lyon by Kopp Himmelblau, Wolf Prix, Le Musée des Confluences, by the way of being in Lyon. And Tony Garnier functioned and acted and built in Lyon. Now this is a hospital in Lyon. I didn't find very, very relevant pictures, but I'll show you the ones I found. So again, you are hearing now about an architect not too many people talk about, but the knowing architects do talk about him. And as I said, Le Corbusier had a high esteem for him. And I think with good reasons, because he had social concerns, he had, visions. So if we have to call them so, he had urban, activities, and he also built, various kinds of buildings, including his own villa, which is perhaps not very impressive, but I mean, seen from today, this is it. This is his house. He still used the arch, maybe inappropriately a little bit, but otherwise the building is rather modern. And then the stadium in Lyon, which I think suffered some modifications. This is what he built. But I see now a roof, an interesting roof actually, but I don't know if that was built by him or not. It might be a later addition. This is how that stadium that he built looks like today. Now, housing quartier des États-Unis, the quarter of, or the quartier, how they call it, the district of the United States. I don't know how it is called like this. Housing in Lyon, 1919, 1935. And another villa, more pastoral, more bucolic, more peaceful. He still uses the arch. So obviously he was still, I know at Minku, the arch is still in high esteem. Personally, I would banish the arch. I think the arch doesn't work any longer with today's architecture, with our time. It doesn't. Its meaning, I think, is not for our time. Now, this is a more modern building, the Centrale téléphonique. You understand, you know, the telephone company headquarters. Centrale telefonica in Romanian. This is the building, the big one, and seen from the corner. This building, you know, could have been built by Aldo Rossi, perhaps, and it was built by Tony Garnier instead, much earlier. A rationalist building, yes. But if we are to use a word to describe it, clean. Now, the town hall, a town hall, meaning a city hall, also in France. This facade is, I think, interesting for the time when it was built. It has another part which is less. I don't know if it was built by him, but this one, yes, does look like a city hall, and a modern city hall that is. This part on the right side unsettles me. I'm not sure it's by him. Maybe it is, but it is a little bit different from this one. But the inside is interesting. It's this central atrium, and well, you could say that these long corridors, you know, with doors on both sides, might make one think of a prison. But the corridors are rather wide, and the doors are not so repetitive and many, so I don't know. But you know, this kind of building was popular around that time. Anyway, now you can see it's quite busy. You know, it's a civic machine, a city hall. Some fine details. He was a good builder as well. Okay, that's it. He deserves actually a more ample. He didn't build so much. He deserves a more ample presentation, but we honor him. We wish him happy birthday, and maybe next year we'll say more about him. I want to show you now, since we are or were in Lyon, I want to show you a work also in Lyon that maybe you might know of, and is one of the most recent buildings in Lyon, and it's by Kopp Himmelblau. So today we'll also talk about two deconstructivists. One is Wolf Prix, and the other one is Bernard Tschumi. So I'll show you the work in Lyon, the same city where Tony Garnier built. I'll show you the museum of Confluences, which might intrigue you. I did visit it last year, and it's meant to be a spectacular. Do you see the screen with the PowerPoint presentations?
Yes.
Okay. So, Le Musée des Confluences, the Museum of Confluences, it's a museum destined to science, but also to the relationships between science and other fields of, culture or intellectual inquiry. Again, it is in Lyon. And I'll read a little bit about it. Musée des Confluences was conceived as a medium for the transfer of knowledge rather than as a showroom for the 2.2 million objects in its collection. and accessibility is a key theme of Kop Himmelblau's layout. The Austrian architecture firm divided the building into three parts: the crystal, the cloud, and the plinth, which contained entrance foyer, exhibition spaces, and auditoriums and workshops, respectively. It has a spectacular section. It's like a big prehistorical animal built in metal. This, I would say, is a limit of the project. Is very mono-material. It's just steel and glass and concrete, some concrete, but so it's a gray building. It's a gray mammoth. It's a gray, cold, anxious animal. And you see some pictures from the inside. Unfortunately, this kind of aesthetics can be found almost identically in other buildings by Kop Himmelblau. They are very interested in a spatial, drama, and it's fine. I love spatial drama myself. It's just that the materials used are less dramatic, actually, because it's mainly one or two materials, steel and glass, and cold, very cold. But yes, in terms of spectacularity, it is spectacular, both from the inside and the outside. The building was very, very expensive. Wolf Prix declared that he had troubles with the mayor and the government of Lyon, but they built it in the end, and the building is visited by many people. I wanted to show you this just to compare with what Tony Garnier did, because Tony Garnier lived at a time when, there was some optimism, as I said, related to industry and the future, and less interest in, excessive need for, architectonic drama or melodrama. We live at a different time, and it shows. There is viscerality in terms of space, and I like this. If I have any, let's call it negative comment, is the fact that this viscerality is not sustained also at the level of tectonics, and there is just metal and glass. But the inside is also makes one think, makes one reflect, because you see these sad, samples of, if I can say so, samples of animals, stuffed animals. I personally think Wolf Prix and Kop Himmelblau are pessimistic about, the positive role of science. Everything is gray here and cold, and you see these animals, these stuffed animals. Is man the conqueror? We apparently conquered the earth, or conquered nature and conquered animals, but with what price? And somehow the interior of the museum evokes some kind of sadness. I don't know if it was intentional or it was unconscious, that it just happened. But I see here some kind of a sadness. It's about death, actually. These animals are stuffed, and they are dead, and they are themselves kind of grayish. So it's, for me, it's a depressive. Look at those bones hanging from the ceiling. Yes, the geometry and everything is fine. I actually think the architectonic message is coherent and strong, but I don't see too much optimism here. I see rather pessimism. Look, you know, it's just death, just bones, just grayness and coldness. And if this is the great progress achieved through science, then let's talk a little bit about it. Here as well, you know, just the skeletons, you know. I would rather have these animals, you know, running in nature, in jungles or whatever, than to have them as bones displayed in the Musée de Confluences. But the building is expressing actually the you know, the drama in a way of our time, you know, the collapse of certitudes. There is a need for you know, there are contortions, there is deconstruction, there is turmoil, there is turbulence. This was the initial sketch of, you know, Mr. Wolf-Prix. I don't think his drawings are truly great, but the building is better. Anyway, so I visited it in January last year with 4 students from Minku, and none of us really was very impressed, although we went there, or I went there with high expectations. I wanted to see this building. And I don't regret I saw it. It's just that it didn't take me by surprise, because he also built the headquarters of BMW, a totally different function, kind of similarly in Germany. Okay, I stop here because this is not about Kopf Himmelblau. And if you want, I'll show you now, just as a sign of appreciation that you showed up today when I didn't send any invitation. You'll have the chance to become familiar with another deconstructivist, that is Bernard Tschumi, a very important one. And he was the dean at Columbia University in New York for about 15 years. And he deserves to be known. Okay, Bernard Tschumi. So at the first exhibition of the deconstructivists in New York, there were 7 deconstructivists. Bernard Tschumi, Wolf-Prix and his partner, Rem Koolhaas, Peter Eisenman, Frank Gehry, Daniel Lipskind, and Zaha Hadid. So he was born in 1944. This is the gentleman. He became famous when he won the competition for the Parc La Villette in Paris, and you'll see the project. And he was very young when he won it. This is from a lecture by him, and sorry, the picture is not very clear. Bernard Tschumi, architecture concepts, red is not a color. He has these provocative statements. Like here, for example, architecture is defined by the actions it witnesses as much as by the enclosure of its walls. Murder in the street differs from murder in the cathedral, in the same way as love in the street differs from the street of love, radically. To really appreciate architecture, you may even need to commit a murder. I don't know about that, but anyway. The most architectural thing here, he talks about Villa Savoie by Le Corbusier. The most architectural thing about this building is the state of decay in which it is. This is the revolt against the father, of course, because he throws with stones at Le Corbusier. Architecture only survives where it negates the form that society expects of it, where it negates itself but by transgressing the limits that history has set for it. I read this, so the picture above is from Villa Savoie by Le Corbusier. You can tell again, his provocation is effective. The most architectural thing about this building is the state of decay in which it is. I guess he loved decay. And common ground architecture is not only what it looks like, but also what it does. Well, you know, maybe not a very subtle or sophisticated statement. To really appreciate architecture, one must move to a God-forsaken wasteland to dwell in a pile of garbage. Well, sounds radical, but I'm not sure he himself would do something like this or did something like this. But you know, Columbia University had the inspiration to hire him as the dean. And I was in New York when he was dean, and I used to go all the time at Columbia. And you know, he had a role in transforming architectural education. For example, in 1992, so that's 28 years ago, not only he eliminated completely T-square and rectangles, but he also eliminated paper. There was a paperless lab at Columbia University. We still work for years with T-squares and rectangles and consume a lot of paper, although we talk about sustainability. We cut down trees in order to produce paper, in order for the architecture students to buy that paper, to do their projects on that paper. And most of the time, unfortunately, that paper arrives in the garbage. So it's like throwing directly the trees or the forest to the garbage. And it's very, very sad. Anyway, red is not a color. We'll arrive at this. He was also very influenced by film, by editing in the film and directing the film, and film had a strong influence on his architecture. As you can see from, you know, even from these diagrams. Here he is, I think with Cedric Price in London. Maybe he was a student or almost a student at the time. And here there are the 7 deconstructivists. Well, Frank Gehry is actually missing, and Peter Eisenman is missing, but you have on the left Bernard Tschumi, then the partner of Wolf Prix, I forgot his name, and then Wolf Prix in the costume, and then near Wolf Prix in the back, Rem Koolhaas. In the front you have Daniel Libeskind, childlike, and then you have Zaha Hadid. And the one on the right is Mark Wigley, who was the curator of the exhibition. So 2 people are missing here because you have 6 people, but actually 5. Tschumi, Kopp Himmelblau, Rem Koolhaas, Daniel Libeskind, and Zaha Hadid. The other 2 being, as I said, Peter Eisenman and Frank Gehry. And this is a picture from the exhibition, Deconstructivist Architecture, which was curated by Mark Wigley, who became dean at Columbia after Bernard Tschumi, and he curated it together with the chameleonic architect named Philip Johnson, who always was opportunistic enough to feel the, you know, what was to come. Okay, Parc de la Villette, Parc de la Villette, sorry, I inversed the 2 little words. Parc de la Villette in Paris. This is the project that made him famous, and it was built a number of cubicle, kind of cubicle structures, in a way useless structures, all red, scattered on a grid. Well, if I can say so, scattered on a grid in the greenery of the Parc of La Villette. He was influenced by the Russian constructivists, and what you see is what you get. If you arrive in Paris, you'll see exactly this. You see here the competition drawing where his little red cubes populate the park at a certain distance from each other. And each one is a little bit different in terms of architectural expression. But they have no function. They are just, in a way, architectural follies. But it was some kind of a visionary park, you know, park of the 20th or 21st century, you know, kind of industrial in a way, but also, you know, with some kind of avant-garde form of aesthetics, influenced, as I said, by the Russian constructivists of the beginning of the 20th century. These are all drawings and presentation drawings of the project. which was built as he designed it. I think he was born actually in Africa, but his father was a famous Swiss architect, and maybe his troubles with a psychological father comes from maybe some tensioned relationship to his father. I don't know. Now, a pavilion in Holland, in the Netherlands, which is kind of interesting. It is leaning, and initially it was, there were TV sets inside, and you would see from the outside people looking at the screens of the TV sets. Now, what you see here, there are later interventions. You know, the pavilion is used for various things, and there are installations there of all kinds. He didn't do it initially with these colors. It was rather like this. A glass box. And there are all kinds of interventions now, of course, enveloping the building or inside, you know, events. Initially, this is what he proposed. And on those vertical things with shelves, there were TVs or monitors. So his idea was to have people looking at the screens while other people outside of the building and within the building would look at them while they were looking at the screens. So this is in the Netherlands. What is nice, they experiment, they experiment, they experiment. And we don't experiment, we don't experiment, we don't experiment. And I think we have to wake up, because otherwise we die of boredom. Le Frenois, this building I saw, it is at the frontier between France and Belgium, and it's quite an interesting building. It is a building, it's a media school for media arts. And I liked it, although the people who used it complained in very vehement terms about it. What is interesting here is that it's kind of a Pyrenean space. There were existing buildings with pitched roofs, and then he put a technological umbrella above it, above them, and then in between the two there was an interstitial space, quite interesting. And I had been there. You see the old building, and he came above it with a so-called umbrella, and you could actually walk through here, and there is a passage that is contorted, and it's an interesting space. I loved it. But again, the people who live there, I talked with the principal of the school, and he said, we are suing Mr. Tschumi. He ruined our lives with this building. You know, the pigeons send their droppings through the holes in the ceiling and in the roof, and there are all kinds of unpleasant results of his innovative architecture. I don't know, you know. People sometimes love to complain, just as I do love to complain sometimes. So, you know, we are only humans. But I like this fact, as I said, that he came with another structure above the older buildings, and something happens there that is, for me, it was an interesting experience. You see the conceptual drawing. He comes with a so-called umbrella, and covers the existing buildings. From here, it looks like a stadium. It's not a stadium, it's a media school, school of media arts. Here you see better, you know, the existing building in yellow and what he proposed floating above it. This is a book which I have, Architecture in Between. He also talks about in-betweenness, just like So Fujimoto or Peter Eisenman and others. This in-betweenness is indeed very important for architecture. Tschumi, Le Fresnoy, that's the place where the school is. You see, Studio National des Arts Contemporains, National Studio of Contemporary Arts. It was his provocative statement that the best architecture is fireworks. And this is a drawing to illustrate this, provocative statement. But he did the stage and he did design fireworks. At least once I know he did. And because he loved fireworks. What can you do about it? Yeah, so you see this passageway, you know, these bridges zigzagging between the various parts of the building. Now, a blue residential tower in New York City, which is also, I think, not bad. An apartment building, but it has personality and perhaps not just in terms of color. We are dealing with an architect who understood early on that we are living in changing times. So he changed Columbia University, the School of Architecture. He understood that digitalization is unavoidable. So the school became very digitalized and the students learned 30 years ago while we don't do it even now. And I don't think it's correct, and I don't think it is right. But anyway, because you cannot do such an architecture easily manually. Perhaps you cannot do it, period. I mean, look at the structure, you know, those columns are not vertical, they are moving. You need technology to do something like this. And be rigorous. Of course, you can make a sketch, but you know, from a mere sketch, manual sketch to working drawings is a long distance. Now, Limoges Concert Hall in France. Some of his buildings look a little bit too much like stadiums. This one as well. It might even be a stadium. I mean, it's a concert hall, but it's like a stadium. Okay, now another work which is also, you know, kind of central, you know, he seems to like this kind of architecture, at least lately. Well, he is not a deconstructivist any longer here. That's for sure.
I wonder what's Tschumi's recent work.
I will show a little bit later. A zoo in Paris, and I have a few works. I made this presentation 1 or 2 years ago, but I think I have some of his latest works. Yeah, I do. I do at least two very new works. But as you know, pardon?
I'm sorry. It's a question that can be asked later.
No, you can ask it now if you want.
Okay, Dan, and maybe the rest too. Do you think that great architects they only produce masterpiece once, and
No.
that's it? And then after that, they would do ordinary things. Do you agree with that, or how does it work?
I don't agree, because there are you know, so many good architects who build at least several very good buildings. It's true that, you know, it is said that in creation you kind of have one strong idea and then everything follows from that idea, but it can follow in many different ways. So no, I mean, I can name you know, many great buildings by many great architects. But yeah, sometimes, you know, I mean, certain things are better than others, inevitably. This is the museum in Athens, near the Acropolis. I have seen this one, and I wasn't really very impressed. It has some qualities, but I don't know. I mean, I have seen almost all his works, or a good number of his works. This one is placed well in relationship with the Acropolis, but it bothered me that it had some, I think the choice of materials was a little bit, for my taste, a little bit too chic. Like, for example, glass on the stairways, you know, you step on glass, and even if it's a, you know, a very safe glass, you feel kind of strange, you know, to step on glass. And I think I have pictures with that. He won the competition and he built it. And you see, he works with these superimpositions, you know, he has various floors, and he has a clarity of thought, and he's able to, you know, conceptualize convincingly. So that's the building in the urban fabric of Athens. For my taste, it's too slick, this flooring, and I know when I got, you know, worked on those stairs, I felt strangely because of the glass. But I mean, I'm also subjective in my perceptions. You know, someone else might have different perceptions. And you can see the Parthenon from here. So there is a dialogue between his building and the Parthenon and the Acropolis. And it is a dialogue between the present and the past. But the present, for my taste, is a little bit, I mean, exemplified by his building, is to me a little bit cold and almost a little bit soulless, because mainly because of the materials he used. You see the two buildings, you know, the Parthenon and his museum. It is correctly, you know, expressed, this dialogue, I think. You see, you know, the floor I was telling you about, you feel funny to walk on glass. In some cases, the usage of glass was correct because you can see through it, the ruins underneath. That's fine, but not everywhere this is. So it's just like on the bridge by Calatrava near um, the train station in Venice, Santa Lucia. He also used glass, and the Venetians got mad because there are even accidents. Even here, you might have accidents, but I'm not thinking in terms of functionalism. I'm thinking in terms of what I felt when I was there. I don't think glass is meant to walk on. Um, at least that was my perception.
Then he could have placed something beneath the glass that would have been more interesting.
Well, as I said, in some parts there are, you can see ruins, but it's not about looking, it's about how you feel. And also that glass is kind of, you know, it's slippery, you know. Now a bridge, which is very well done, I forgot where it is, in France or in Belgium. No, he's a good builder, and he's also a good intellectual. I mean, he's very at home with dialectics, and he was, I think, a great dean. You know, he invited all his friends from Europe and Japan and so on to lecture at Columbia, and there was a turmoil then, you know, in education. There was such an excitement and such a, I mean, that's why I'm envious, you know, and at times I get angry because I was there at the time and I benefited from this incredible intellectual challenging atmosphere, which we do not have. And we do not have because of lassitude, because of apathy, because of I don't know what. And those people move the world and we do not move it. And, you know, I mean, what a great chance now to have Jacques Derrida and Jean Baudrillard. And, you know, I'm not even talking about the people who taught there, you know, Kenneth Frampton, Peter Eisenman, Bernard Tschumi, Mark Wigley, Stephen Hall. They were all there. You know, this was beautiful, that the professors and the students were all there twice a week. They made time to be there. And it was a very stimulating environment. Now that it stimulated me to be critical, that's another thing, but it didn't leave me indifferent. This is the point. It stirred me up. And that's exactly what he wanted to do. I remember one day Bernard Tschumi talked with I don't know, the one responsible with the campus. It's a huge campus, Columbia University, to falsely declare fire in the auditorium, just to make people, you know, I mean, it was, you know, kind of, you know, superficial, to make the people agitate themselves and jump from their chairs and, you know, scream and so on. He wanted energy, he wanted action, he wanted reactions, he wanted life. And yeah, in a kind of, I would say, superficial way, but you know, sometimes superficiality is maybe, I don't know, it's part of life. And, you know, if you are continuously too profound and too serious and everything, you know, you could put people to sleep. Anyway, no, it was an exciting time, and it was a difficult time because it was the end of the 20th century. It was the end of a millennium. So there was anxiety, there was pessimism. I felt it. I was there, and but it was exciting. Imagine, you know, you go to Columbia, and in the same room at the same time, you have Rem Koolhaas, you have Zaha Hadid, you have Mark Wigley, you have Bernard Tschumi, you have Peter Eisenman, all together there, talking with you and with the students, and the students with them, and there was I don't know, a desire for dialogue and for debating. maybe I idealize now because I know then I was boiling, but the very fact that I was boiling shows clearly that yes, I was not indifferent. And in a way, I was formed there. That's why I'm trying to bring here something of that sort, and I don't succeed. It's that the inertia here is unbelievable. I mean, it's stronger than God. Really, it's unbelievable. I cannot provoke dislocations, disjunctions. I cannot fissure the monolith. I cannot create a rift, and it's impossible. It's unbeatable. It is you cannot defeat it. Anyway, I can't. Maybe someone else can. Now, this zoological park, it's one of his later works, and I'll show also one of his truly, more recent works. This is, I think, he did a good job, and because, in a surprising way, perhaps, his meeting between, the animals and himself, the refined, Swiss intellectual, it was beneficial, I think, this meeting. I don't care too much about that, structure, but there are other things that I like. And he even used wood, which is very, very rarely used by deconstructivists. But again, where you have such a magnificent nature, I actually think that the nature that we see in this picture is more magnificent than the structure above it. But that's my opinion. But I like the fact that he created these fences, with wood in this a little bit playful and imperfect way. I don't know about these stones. They look fake somehow, and maybe they are fake. I don't know. When I think of Machu Picchu in Peru, and I look at these, it's almost like I compare, real news with fake news. Something fake about this. They are probably not stones. They are mimicking stones, and I see them as being grotesque. But anyway. But the wooden part I like, and it's rough, and it's real wood, it's solid wood, and he accepted them not to be perfectly rectangular and sleek. This is fine. It connects with the world of animals, I think, properly, and I think the animals like them too. He worked with a designer, I forgot, a landscape designer, so he didn't work alone. Maybe I think a lady, she did the planning, the master plan, so to speak. Yeah, this one.
I think she's called Veronique. I don't know how to pronounce it. The Charrier or something.
Right. Thank you. Anyway, it's my conviction we need more and more women in architecture. Men said what they had to say until now. We should go back a little bit and allow the women to build, to think, to write, to publish, to draw. I have a book published in France, which even its title says the 21st century is the century of women. It's the women's century. I feel it too. I believe it. And there are still 80 more years, at the disposal of women. So I hope, they take over completely, including the governments of countries. Because I read, that actually the countries run by women are doing better in the fight with coronavirus. And I don't know how this is happening, but it seems this is the case. In New Zealand, in Germany, I don't know, maybe something of the empathy of women, which is probably higher than in the case of men. I know, I don't think it can be explained totally rationally, but it seems to be the case, yes. Anyway, at least some male presidents are horrid. So better without them, this is my belief. A nice planning really here. I mean, you know, I admire that wooden fence by Tschumi, but I admire the planning even more. And, you know, you can tell it's a different spirit. And it's her, it's Veronique's spirit. Now, this one, I forgot what, yeah, it's another museum. I think it's in the countryside of France somewhere. And yes, he uses these, you know, perfect round structures. You know, they land it almost like an unidentified flying object, you know, that landed there on, you know, the countryside of France. It's his, you know, attitude vis-a-vis life. It's cerebral, it's conceptual, it's based on dialectics and conflict. And here the conflict, of course, is between the rural side or the countryside and the centrality and the roundness of the structure. But again, you could say, well, what happened to the deconstructivists? Well, that was at the beginning. Now, some deconstructivists, not all of them, evolved or changed. This building I didn't see with my own eyes, so to speak, but those that I saw, although I was very critical at the very beginning of him, later on I began to recognize some virtues in his work. I didn't like so much the Parc La Villette, but I like Le Fresnoy, that Center for Media Arts, the frontier between France and Belgium. And I saw also the center, which I don't have here in this presentation, the Center for the Student Center at Columbia University has some interesting parts, although the context was difficult because, you know, he had to marry his architecture with what the neoclassicists did around it. And, you know, he tried. Anyway, even here you see some kind of a conceptual divorce. I mean, you have nature, although kind of, you know, not organized, but it's not really a wild nature. You have nature, and then you have his building, which is clearly not done by nature or by God. It's done by man, and maybe they complement each other. Yeah, I guess. Now, this is a building which was not built at the time when I made the presentation. And here, I mean, some of these people, of course, run out of imagination. So then they use themes that are part of the fashion or the trend. Something like this was done also by Toyo Ito in the Todd's department store, or recently by Arata Isozaki, but Isozaki didn't remain at the level of 2 dimensions, but he brought the tree dramatically into the facade, very much in 3 dimensions. But essentially is about the same thing, you know, trying to, on one hand, ornamentalize the facade, and on the other hand, to bring back nature in some form. And so this was his project, not very original as far as I can tell. anyway, I don't think it was built. Now this is this is one of his latest works, if not the latest, that was built. The Modern City and Industrial Exploratorium of Tianjin Binhai New Area Culture Center. This is the plan, and you would not have expected Tschumi to, look nostalgically, if I can say so, towards Louis Kahn, but in a way, maybe he did in this work. In a certain way, of course, he's a very different architect. He uses, high technology, digital planning and designing, but it's a form of architecture that looks towards the archaic and the archetypal, kind of like candid. And so there is some kind of flirtation with history. I would say a little bit less profound than Kant's, but somehow, at least outside, kind of in the same spirit. Although his friend Rem Koolhaas, I've heard him in a conference saying, never again, Louis Kahn, never again. but look, Bernard Tschumi, at least, not the inside, because with the inside, I see more Guggenheim Museum to an extent. Well, not every spiral now, of course, is connected with potentially or not with Guggenheim Museum. But, inevitably you think of being also a museum of Guggenheim. Outside, though, it's a different story. It's a story of opacity, but also an ornamented opacity. And the aleatory part of architecture is present, meaning the playfulness with the holes. Well, Albert Einstein said that a genius is the one who uses inspirations or quotations, inspirations, but in the end, one cannot see the sources of the inspiration. Now, I don't know if Tschumi is not a genius, but I began to see that some architects, even some of the better ones, do find inspiration in other people's works and from other times. So who knows exactly what inspired this kind of architecture here. Maybe it was just born from within, and I hope that was the case. But sometimes it happened to me too once, believe me. I did a project for Manhattan, for a competition, for Times Tower, for the Times Square competition. And, I thought what I did was extremely, it was born from me and just from me. And I believed in what I did. And once I showed that work to a Japanese colleague of mine. I was working at the time in a Japanese architecture office in Manhattan. And he said, well, this is very similar to the trilon and the sphere that New York City had at the international, the World's Exhibition in 1939. I said, I don't know anything about that exhibition. So he brought me a magazine, and indeed, there were striking similarities. But I swear to you, when I made the project, I was not aware at all of that. Maybe it was just a coincidence, or maybe I saw that project before and it remained in my unconscious. I am absolutely sure, honestly, towards myself, to begin with, that I have many limits and many problems, but not at that level where I copy something from history and sign the work with my own name. No, I would never do that. So it's possible sometimes that there is a conjunction between your intuitions and your work. and other works from other times and by other people. It's possible. But it's also possible because, you know, we look through books, we look through magazines, we look through, you know, on the net now. And, you know, I mean, look, you know, I mentioned the Guggenheim. I even forgot about this. I forgot that I mentioned the Guggenheim, but I didn't know that there was in this presentation a picture with his building. Maybe he only wanted to show this just to show the scale, the vastness of his project. But it's not just about the vastness of the project. That spiral made me think of the Guggenheim. Anyway,
Then,
yeah.
yeah, I'd like to ask, how is this building similar to that of Louis Kahn? Because I don't see any similarity. I don't see the connection between this and Louis Kahn.
Well, I'm surprised you don't see it because, you know, if I think of Dhaka, I mean, don't take it literally, but this kind of, you know, round brick, he doesn't use brick, but I can show you right now images from Dhaka near the parliament where it's the same archetypal, opaque, you know, archaic architecture here expressed with some differences, but to me, the feeling is kind of a little bit similar. I mean, even in Ahmedabad, you have the big brick walls, which are reddish and opaque, and there are the rather round openings. It's about, no, it's not about details or about, you know, necessarily a literal, you know, similarity, but the impulse to recuperate, to reclaim a certain kind of archaic or archetypal architecture. At that time, I'm referring. And you can see also, if you study the urban planning for Philadelphia of Louis Kahn, you'll see other similarities between what he did here and but again, you don't have to look at details or you know, literal similarities. It's more like a, you know, an intellectual disposition or inclination, or I don't know how to describe it. Even more so in his case, because you would not have expected a certain historicism, because it is a certain historicism here. You would not have expected him from, you would not have expected it from him, from Bernard Tschumi. Bernard Tschumi always was inspired by the Russian constructivists. That was his tradition. But what we see here has nothing to do with the Russian constructivists. It's no, this is not Russian constructivism at all. So there is some kind of a change here. And the similarity I see again with Kahn is in terms of the archetypal and the archaic. I would see this building in Dhaka near the administrative center that can build there. Of course, it's different. You know, it's more sleek, more modern, but there is still, I see the archetypal and the archaic. Also, the level of artificiality is very different from Kahn. You know, he works with, you know, sleek materials, with the industrially obtained, components. Everything is digitalized. The ornamentation as well. Cannes worked with different kind of tectonics, but I see in both. And with Cannes, it doesn't surprise me, but with the Tschumi, it does surprise me because I didn't expect him to have this flirtation with history, with the opaque wall and with the archaic and with the archetypal. Now this is a building, a complex of buildings in Hague in the Netherlands. Very different. Now here he has nothing in common with Cannes, unless we talk about the conception about ruins that Cannes had. Maybe you know that Louis Cannes thought that the ruin tells you how the building was made, but the ruin also tells you how the building will become. And also the deterioration of the corner, which is a theme in architecture in general and in Cannes also, because it is there in the corner that something happens. Maybe it's the most vulnerable part of the building. The corner is very important. And here we also see the distortions in the corner. And Frank Lloyd Wright also, with his corner window addressed in his own way the same problem. The corner is important. But this is a mundane building, a commercial building in a, well-to-do European city. Now the shed in London, and with this I will end this presentation. Strangely, when I made this presentation maybe 1 year ago or so, but I forgot that he actually did this red building. In fact, even now I'm not sure it is by him, but I see it. I end the presentation on Tschumi with this. It must be him. On the right is the Brutalist, so-called Brutalist building, a good building by Dennis Lasden, Sir Dennis Lasden, a quite good British architect. But the red one, and it's very similar to a little bank, if I'm not mistaken, by Louis Sullivan. That's why lately I began to be a little bit suspicious of, I think some architects are not as pure as I imagine them to be, but maybe not, I don't know. But it's interesting, it's red, it has those four, whatever they are, I don't know, they are chimneys or what are they? It's primal. I wouldn't call it archaic, but maybe it's a little bit archetypal, but in a chic way, in a modern way, in a contemporary way. And it's in London. It's probably some kind of a technical space. I don't know why it's called the shed. I don't know its function. It's not very big. And you can see St. Paul Cathedral far away in the background. That's it. This was more like a bonus for those of you who attended today, although today I didn't send, for the first time, I didn't send any kind of invitation to anyone.